I'm Dave Cosmo, and you're watching the CPR Dave Show. We're here today in Patterson, New York with the Great Blue Outfitters. We're going to go in and see Mac Rand, a professional in outdoor sports. I'm a little bit of a history buff, Mac, and I see you have this phenomenal canoe. It looks like, I love things that are so well made and have such nostalgic reference to them. Can you tell me more about it?
Sure. When I was a kid, I did a lot of canoe tripping at summer camp in old-style wood canvas canoes made by a Canadian company called Chestnut. They haven't been around for about 30 years, but I've always had a kind of soft spot in my heart for the old traditional style of outdoor gear. This canoe was made in Maine by a company called B.N. Morris. It's, let's see, 96 years old.
Wow.
Made in 1915. It's almost as old as you. It was, the factory burned down in the early 20s, and so there aren't a whole lot of these boats around. I bought it about 4 years ago, kind of on a whim. I don't really need another canoe because I've got lots of canoes and kayaks,
Right.
but I just fell in love with it. It has been refurbished at some point in its past, but I just love the woodwork. It's got the great cane seats, the beautiful ribs and planks inside. I know people who make these canoes. They're a real dying breed, and I just really appreciate the incredible amount of time and energy and labor that goes into making this. This is all done by hand.
So, Mac, I see you're going to tell us a little bit about some of the differences between modern and the original type paddles that they used with the canoe that we just saw.
Sure. Well, you can see we've got two very different styles of paddle here. One very modern, and although this paddle is only a few months old, I carved this,
Wow.
I guess last summer. They both do the same job. They're both going to pull us through the water, but being a guy who kind of likes the old school kind of stuff, I really enjoy making my own paddles and then using it. So we're going to put this guy away.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit about this. This paddle is, this is cherry that I made this one out of. I like cherry because you can really see the grain in it. It's got really nice figuring. It's just nice to look at. This paddle started off with a hunk of lumber, 5/4 inch thick, 1¼ inch thick, obviously longer than that to be full length. And the first thing I do is to cut out kind of the rough shape of the paddle on a jigsaw. So, and we call that a blank. So we just trace out the shape of the paddle that we want to cut, and then use a jigsaw to get that rough form. And that gets us to a stage similar to this. You can see that the blade is still very thick,
Right.
1¼ thick, but on this one I've started cutting out the grip and the shaft. For the shaft, I use a tool called a spoke shave. And think back to the old wagon wheels of the settlers going out west and their wagon wheels. They didn't have any kind of machinery to make those. They used a tool like this, a spoke shave. And what this does is to round off that square piece of wood. And it's a little tedious, but you just run like that, and we get a little shaving like that, and keep turning it, and eventually you get the shaft to, I like to have it a little bit oval actually, it makes it a little bit stronger. And then the next step, once I've gotten the shaft rounded, is to plane my blade down to a thickness that I want it to be. It's a little thicker down the middle of the blade to give a little more strength, and then tapers off to about 3/8 of an inch along the edges.
Okay.
And to do that, I start off with a power planer at first, and then to do the fine tuning, use a block plane to continue to take wood off
And do you weigh these to try and get a specific weight? Is there a,
I don't-
because this feels, for a hard wood, this feels very light and very nice and.
It's not about weight so much as it is about balance, if you
Mhm.
call that. I want it to balance right around where you would grab onto it with your bottom hand. So
Okay.
if I put my finger underneath there, that's where it should balance.
Ah.
If there's too much wood on the shaft, it's gonna balance farther up, or
So that's
if
how
there's
you
not
do it.
enough,
It's
so,
water.
yeah, you
It's
wanna
by
balance. Yeah, because when you're paddling, your bottom hand should be right around, this is called the neck, or sometimes you'll hear the throat of the paddle. You don't wanna paddle like this, you're not gonna get as much power. So you're gonna put your hand down here, so that should kind of be your balance point.
Very cool. Well, we're back here with Mac Rand, Kayak Mac, and we have two unique kayaks, and he's going to explain the difference between these types of kayaks. So take it away, Mac.
All right, well, we've got two styles of recreational kayaks. This style, this boat is made by a company called Old Town, very famous company up in Maine. And this is a sit-in kayak. And this boat here is a sit-on-top kayak. Sit-on-tops have become pretty popular in recent years for a couple of reasons. So I'll tell you the differences. You're going to use the same paddle on either boat, double-bladed paddle that we can change the angle for feathering. So that's not any different. And of course, you're going to wear your PFD, your personal flotation device. Always, always make sure it's on correctly on either boat. But the main difference, as you can see, is that in the sit-in, you're getting down into the cockpit of the boat. Now, the benefit of that is that it lowers your center of gravity very close to the water. So you're going to feel more stable. The downside is that some folks don't like to be enclosed with their legs under cover in a tight cockpit like that.
Right.
Now, compared to other recreational kayaks, this is a pretty open cockpit. But still, some folks just don't like that. They're afraid if they tip over, they might get trapped in the boat. The reality is you probably just fall right out of the boat. But still, if that's a concern, then some people who have that worry maybe would lean towards a boat like this, a sit-on top. And a sit-on top, obviously there's no cockpit, you're out in the open. The downside is that your center of gravity is several inches above the water as opposed to being down beneath the water line in the sit-in boat. But if you want to go out for a swim, let's say it's a hot day, and you want to slide off your boat and just go for a dip, you can do that. When you're done, you just climb back in, and off you go.
And you're all set.
Yeah, it's hard to get into a sit-in
When you're out underwater.
If you get out, even if you jump out on purpose, to try and climb back in is kind of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
There's a technique to it that is even those of us who have practiced a long time, it's not very graceful and not very comfortable to get back into a sit-in kayak if you're out of it. With these boats, you can just climb back in. They have little holes in here where the water that comes in will drain. They're self-draining,
Right
self-bailing.
Okay.
And you got a seat, so they're pretty comfortable. You've got places where you can put your feet to give you a little, kind of like the braces inside that boat, where you can kind of brace yourself in this boat. They're not meant for speed. They're meant for going out,
For
just having
recreational.
some fun. You've got a little storage back here where you can put,
Is that a cup holder?
you can use that as a cup holder, a water bottle holder. Yeah.
Or a lot of people fish from these too, don't they?
That's true. That's a good point. That sit-on tops are increasingly popular for fishing because you've got a little more flexibility, a little more ways. And there are some sit-on tops that are specifically made for fishing, that have a dry well, that have rod holders.
So they're
really set up for it.
very nice.
Yeah.
This is pretty impressive. Is there more difficulty in stabilizing this in the water, or not necessarily?
Well, just because your center of gravity is up a little bit higher, at first you might feel a little less stable than in a sit-in kayak.
Until you get used to it.
Until you get used to it, yeah.
So ocean versus lake, is there any difference between kayaks related to ocean versus lake?
Well, sure. Ocean kayaks, if you're going to go out in open water, whether it's someplace like Long Island Sound
Right.
or even the Hudson River, those boats tend to be very long, a minimum of maybe 14 or 15 feet,
Wow.
up to 20 feet long. Very narrow. They're made for one thing. That's to go in a straight line and very fast. That's a whole different style of kayak than what we do here.
Right.
If we're going to go out paddling on the Great Swamp or some local waterway where you're not concerned about getting from point A to point B, you
Correct.
just want to go out and do a little maneuvering, kind of be able to go puttering around.
Just really enjoy nature, take in that
Yeah.
beautiful
Right.
natural ambiance.
Yep, if you're gonna do that, then a boat anywhere from 9.5 or 10 feet up to 12 to 13 feet, that's the recreational kayak length. And those are the boats that will still be pretty maneuverable for you. You'll still be able to go left and right. They'll be decent going in a straight line. The rule of thumb is the longer the boat, the faster it's going to be in a straight line. These boats do not go very fast in a straight line because they're only about 9.5 feet long. If you get up to 10, 10.5, 11 feet, you get to go a little more straight line speed, and they're still very maneuverable. These will turn very well, so if you're someplace where you need to do a lot of maneuvering, these are good boats to have. But if you're in a mix of turning and straight,
Right.
you might want something a little bit longer. But these are fun little boats to get out, just to go out and have, go enjoy a nice sunny day, maybe over in White Pond, someplace like that. You could do some swimming, do some fishing, do some paddling, and have a very nice experience.
Very nice. Okay, I think we're going to actually try them out and see what it looks like to feel being inside and being above.
All right, very good.
Hey, Mac Rand, how are you?
I'm good, Dave. How are you
I
doing?
didn't expect to run into you out here.
Oh, I love it out here on the Great Swamp.
Oh, it's great. Beautiful day. The water's just not too cold. So, so what's going on? What's new?
Well, I see you're in a sit-in kayak. How do you like that kayak?
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah?
I'm trying it out from Great Blue Outfitters.
Yeah,
They let
yeah.
me try it out. I find it pretty interesting. I see you're in a different type of kayak. How do
Yeah.
you like that one?
Well, this is kind of a fun boat. You see, I'm sitting up way above the water. You're way down low in there. So yeah, you kind of get a nice view. It's maybe not quite as stable as your boat, but once you get a little experience, it's fine.
Yeah, you look like the king sitting in there.
Yeah, I feel very comfortable. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
I like the way your kayak paddle matches your kayak.
Oh, you got to look good when you're out in the woods, Dave.
And you got your safety vest on?
Got my PFD on. You've got
PFD?
yours on. That's good.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Always safety comes first. From the American Heart Association, CPR training, we are always thinking safety conscious. We want to be able to have a good time out here in the Great Swamp. We want to be able to take our family and our friends out here, and we want to know that we're going to be safe.
Yeah. Here I've got a trail guide to the Appalachian Trail for the New York and New Jersey section of the trail. Many people have heard of the Appalachian Trail but may not realize how close it is to us. From where we're standing, it's about 2 miles away.
Right up Route 22,
Right up Route 22, where it crosses 22 north side of Pauling. But it also runs through Putnam County, Fondstock State Park. The trail runs right through there. These are invaluable if you ever want to do any serious hiking on the trail, because not only do you have maps that will explain virtually step by step where to go and what to look for, but also these guides that are interesting, informative, and really tell you what to be looking for as you're going out hiking.
Wow.
So there are about a dozen of these. Of course, the trail goes from Georgia to Maine.
Mhm.
So basically each state or every couple of states has their own book. So you've got the booklet with all the information, and then these very detailed maps that go along with it. An absolute must-have resource for hiking on the Appalachian Trail.
Right. Max, thanks for having me here. It's been a wonderful opportunity to visually see everything that you have here, and so informative to actually have a conversation and relax in these nice Adirondack chairs. This has been the CPR Dave Show, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.